So years pass by, and David is now the leader of the Israelite army. One day, while returning home from another victory, the people sing a song about how David has killed more people than the king. Saul gets jealous of David and remembers what Samuel told him all those years ago regarding his kingdom not lasting. He then seeks to kill David since he is a pretender to the throne. He makes a wager with David saying that if he gets the foreskins of 100 Philistine warriors, he may marry his daughter. He expects David to die on this mission, but David returns with 200 Philistine foreskins, and Saul is forced to have David marry into his family. Now, his jealousy and paranoia grows even larger, and he straight up tries to murder David on several occasions with his own hands, but he pretends it's the evil spirit making him to do so. Jonathan, King Saul's firstborn son, has a deep romance with David, and he warns David of his father's murderous intent. David then flees for his life. Saul tries going after him, but God causes him to prophesy, thus giving David time to escape. But now David is a fugitive. Some priests take David in for sanctuary and even give him Goliath's sword and some bread to help him. They later get killed by Saul for helping David. David then runs into the wilderness and prays for God to help. And with some time passes, all the other outcasts, wanderers, and outlaws of Israel come to David, and he slowly assembles his own army while on the run. And when he does have his own army, he continues fighting the Philistines in their own personal territory, even living among them. Saul pursues David and makes camp while chasing him. David sneaks into the camp of King Saul, and some of his men advise him to murder Saul while they watch him as he sleeps. But David refuses because Saul was chosen by God, and God will deal with him himself. So David cuts off a piece of Saul's robes and leaves the camp. The next day, David, while standing on high ground, announces to Saul that he could have killed him, but he refuses because he was God's chosen. King Saul cries, acknowledging how honorable and righteous David is, and he gives up his pursuit, but sadly this happens again, showing that Saul is not true to his word. David continues living in Philistine territory and even marries a woman named Abigail. Later, the Philistines gather a large force to attack Israel, so large in fact that Saul craps his pants just by looking at him. He needs spiritual guidance, but Samuel the prophet by this time is dead, and God has turned his back on Saul. So Saul sneaks out one night and meets with a witch called the Witch of Endor. He orders her to summon the spirit of the dead Samuel so he can speak with him. She does this, and Samuel's spirit is summoned. Saul asks for help, but Samuel tells him that no one can help him because God is no longer with him. He also tells Saul that he will die fighting this army, so shall his son Jonathan and some of his other sons. He then leaves. Saul is very shocked by this news. Then the next day comes, and everything that Samuel said came true. During the battle, all of Saul's sons are killed. Saul orders one of his men to kill him, but he refuses, so Saul kills himself. David hears about this and weeps for the loss of his friend Jonathan, and Saul as well. He makes a song devoted to their memory, but he can't mourn long, however, because the Amalekites raid David and take his wives hostage. David then goes and murders them and rescues his wives in return. After this, David is made king of Judah, but a general named Abner from Saul's forces stops David from being king of all of Israel by announcing Saul's only living son, named Ishbosheth, king of Israel. So now there are two kings fighting against each other, Ishbosheth and David. One day during a battle, Abner faces David's general and his nephew, named Joab, and his brother. Abner escapes but kills Joab's brother. After this, Abner and Ishbosheth have an argument, and during this argument, Abner realizes that he should have been helping David all along. And so he decides to meet with David, and he even asks for permission to. David agrees to meet with him, and as soon as Abner enters the city, Joab, against the orders of David, kills Abner for revenge for his brother. During this murder, another one takes place. Some of the soldiers of Ishbosheth murder him in his sleep. because they think his cause is lost and they hope to get in good with David. But David has them executed for their betrayal. He even punishes Joab, and because he did not agree with any of these murders. But nonetheless now, David is king of all of Israel. He then goes out and conquers Jerusalem, beats up the Philistines, and recaptures the Ark of the Covenant, and dances in celebration of all the victories God has given him. David, however, is not happy that the Ark is stuck in the simple tabernacle, while he lives in a palace. He then decides that he's going to build a grand temple to store the Ark. The prophet Nathan tells him that God will have David's son build a temple instead of David, because David is a man of war with way too much blood on his hands, but his son will be a man of peace. David then continues conquering all of his enemies, wait, I lost my page. Oh yeah. And he finds out that the son of Jonathan, his dead friend, is still alive. So David brings in the crippled boy, and even restores all the lands of Saul onto the son of Jonathan. Things are going pretty well for David at this point, until one day he looks out his window and sees a really hot chick named Bathsheba taking a shower. He becomes obsessed with her, and even secretly orders her to his palace, and they get it on. But he finds out that she is the wife of one of his most loyal soldiers, named Uriah, and he got her pregnant too. David then forges a message to Joab to send Uriah to the front lines of the battle so that he could die, and he does. David then marries Bathsheba, and David thinks he's all slick, but God sends the prophet Nathan to tell him of his sin and to warn him that his sin is not hidden from God. David realizes that his secret is out, and he begins to ask for forgiveness. But Nathan tells him that God will forgive him, but the child Bathsheba is carrying will die as punishment. David then spends days praying for God to spare the baby, but it dies anyways. David comforts Bathsheba, and they have another child named Solomon after, who God loved very much. And David learned his lesson and worked hard to be a better person so nothing bad would ever happen again. Or did it? Dun dun dun.